everybody, welcome to the garage. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton is here. Stand up, Peter, take a bow.
You can't see me.
God, you do the hard you do the hard work. Who was it who said she liked the creaking of my leather jacket?
Yes, that was my girlfriend from a while back.
Your girlfriend, Vicky? Well, lone voice. Everybody said that it was a distraction and I should never wear a leather jacket because it's creaking and sounding shocking.
I was always very lucky after I wore a leather jacket.
I like leather jackets, but clearly when you're wearing a microphone like that sitting right there, it picks. Anyway, I'm sorry. We didn't realise. A lot of response to the Australian Institute's story, which was their survey. Only 27% of 18 to 24-year-olds would fight for their country. And even more astonishing, 48% would leave the country rather than be drafted. Oh my God, what are we breeding? No, I'm sorry, it's the education system, I think, that's breeding. A lot of comments, as I say. But let me read Lila's comment. I've read it about half a dozen times, so I think I can get the gist of it, telling you here. I didn't bring it down with me, but she pointed out, to go and fight for your country, you have to love your country. Our kids are taught to hate their country and be ashamed of their country. Also, why would anyone fight for a country he didn't own? A country that has been given away. Lila points out, welcome to country says it all. We don't own the place. And as one of your guests, she says, Warren Mundine, on the Friday show, around the dining room table, made it quite clear that by 2030, Aboriginals would have legal title to 75% of mainland Australia. And she goes on to say something like, a survey of Aboriginal people who own most of the country even now might be more appropriately asked if they would enlist and fight for Australia. I don't know about you, Jeremy, she said, but I can barely recognise this country today, and it's getting worse. Thank you, Lila. Thank you. I intend to ring Scott Hargraves, who is the CEO of the Australian Institute, who did that survey, and invite him on the show this coming Friday morning. JeremyCordeaux.com, around the dining room table. You can ring in if you want to. Yes, they're always doing interesting surveys on interesting things. I don't know much about the Australian Institute, but we'll find out on Friday. On the brink of a war that nobody wants, ladies and gentlemen, Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, has been assassinated, as you would know. I'd never heard of him before this event, but clearly the hundreds, possibly thousands of demonstrators who turned up in Adelaide and Melbourne and Sydney on Sunday afternoon they had framed pictures of him, for God's sake. Why mourn this murderous bastard who was filled with hate? A great supporter of the Taliban, ISIS, Osama bin Laden, Hamas, and Iran, enslaver of women. I mean, that he survived this long is a miracle. Sort of miracle we can probably do without. But do note that here in Adelaide and Melbourne and elsewhere, I've got no doubt, there were these mass protests of support for this guy, in support of a terrorist. That's illegal, isn't it? And that's what he was. He was a terrorist. Those demonstrators, many of them, unfortunately, were women. Do they want to live under Sharia law? Do they know what happens in Afghanistan? But if that's what you want, there are lots of countries where you can live under Sharia law. Now, quite honestly, looking at that television footage, these are people we never should have allowed into this country. They are supporters openly, without fear, openly supporting terrorism. They should have been arrested. I don't think they were. Or, if they're on visas, those visas should be cancelled. Get rid of them. Now, Labor government's got a problem with so many Muslim seats to lose in Western Sydney. They're going to tread very, very carefully. And if you listen to Penny Wong's address to the United Nations, useless bloody organisation that it is, you could see sort of the, I don't know what you'd call it, virtue signalling to those Western Sydney seats. Heaven, heaven help us. Somebody who won't be invited to perform in a Muslim country anytime soon is Katy Perry. Did you hear about that, Pete? $5 million for 5 songs.
Yes, if only I could earn that.
You could stand there in Rundle Mall busking $5 million for 5 songs. But to top that, the AFL offered Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Ronnie Woods, and yes, he's still alive, Ronnie Woods. He doesn't look it, does he? For headlining the top entertainment spot at the AFL Grand Final, $20 million they offered them to do 4 songs, not 5, 4 songs, 4 songs for $20 million. Look, the AFL is certifiable. Certifiable. And by the way, what was his name? Meatloaf. What was that song about? 2 out of 3 ain't bad?
Yes.
I liked that.
Yeah. He had some...
Bat Out of Hell was, yeah. Anyway, he got $500,000 to sing the national anthem, and sadly he wasn't quite worth that. Gone to God these days, but anyway, God bless you, Meatloaf. I mean, who the hell would call a kid Meatloaf? I don't know. We have lost, speaking of music, a musical legend. Chris Christopherson. Rhodes Scholar, decorated army officer, pilot, helicopter pilot, father of 8. He was married 3 times. Actor, singer, writer of some of the best songs of his generation. He lived quietly for the last few years of his life. I had the pleasure of holding his firstborn, who was a little tiny baby. God, it was in Sydney. He made his first visit to Australia in about 1972 or 3. And he was there, brought the baby along to the concert. No, it wasn't a concert, it was a reception, a record promotion. Because he was big in America and they were trying to make him big in Australia, and I was on 2GB at the time. I did my best to make him big because his music was wonderful, wonderful. His last concert was in 2020. He was 88. Pete, your favourite songs?
Help Me Make It Through the Night.
Yes, indeed.
Loving Her Was Easier.
Loving Her Was Easier Than Anything I've Ever Done.
Yeah.
Sunday Morning Coming Down.
Brilliant song, yeah.
You know the story about that, where he landed the helicopter because he couldn't get arrested in Nashville, and he landed, hired a helicopter, and he flew the helicopter, landed it on Johnny Cash's front lawn. And Johnny Cash said, "My God, if you're that keen, I'll listen to the damn song." And he loved it. Sunday Morning Coming Down was that song. Silver Tongue Devil. He did a lovely version of Me and Bobby McGee, didn't he?
Yes.
He didn't write Loving Arms, but he did a great version of that too.
That was Tom Jans, I think, wasn't it?
Tom Jans wrote it, yeah. Our sponsors are the Rising Sun Inn on Bridge Street, 60 Bridge Street at Kensington, and the wonderful Jim Elder Fine Art Gallery in North Adelaide, Melbourne Street, North Adelaide, always looking for paintings for his next auction. If you're looking to sell, he would love to present your work of art to a keen purchasing global public. He's looking for notable Australian and international works of art. Talk to him. He's on 8267 2869. 8267 2869. He has 4 big art auctions every year, which are viewed all over the world. A wonderful way to reach a global audience. Jim Elder Fine Art Gallery, 8267 2868. Now, I'll tell you about the Rising Sun tomorrow. The ACCC has surveyed 27,000 shoppers and say people have lost faith in supermarkets. Really? Really? Okay. I don't go there for faith, I go there to buy provisions, but anyway, that's just me. It's all part of an ongoing demonising of the sector, mostly Coles and Woolworths. Then there's the revelation that the big two are allegedly involved in land hoarding. This is buying large sites suitable for developing into supermarkets or shopping centres. It's a tactic to keep out the competition. Now, I don't know. I don't think that's illegal, is it? All's fair in love and war and commerce. Then there's the allegation and upcoming litigation involving supermarket discounts. It's an interesting subject. I don't know about you, but I've always assumed that discounts were an overused gimmick, a tactic used by everyone selling anything. Some important facts. Aldi and the Costcos of this world are huge international corporations. Far, far bigger than Coles and Woolworths. They are in Australia for the long haul. They mean business. No Australian shareholders. Their profits go overseas. Not so Coles and Woolworths and most of the independents. Profits stay here. And those profits have been stable and modest at about 2% on capital invested. Hardly a sign that they're ripping off the general public. And profits go, as I say, go largely to local shareholders. We have choices and discretion when it comes to shopping and are generally well served. So why are they the focus of such scrutiny? Yes, oh, I get it, right. No, I understand. Cost of living. Yep, totally agree, I get it. But Royal Commissions, ACCC inquiries, Choice magazine, surveys, yet the real core cost of living problem is the unbelievable increase in the cost of electricity, which is reflected in the prices we pay for everything. Everything. Ladies and gentlemen, everything. The bill I was used to getting, I'll give you a personal example. The bill I was used to getting for electricity here was about $1,300 to $1,500 a quarter. I thought that was pretty steep, depending on the time of the year, you understand. Now, I have just written a check for $5,270, yes, I think that's right, $5,270. 1 quarter. This is outrageous. It's unaffordable. But is there an inquiry into why electricity is unaffordable? A Royal Commission? Where's the ACCC? Not a word.
Where's the Liberal Party?
Oh, I have no idea where the Liberal Party is. God help us. This is all part of the outrageous policies of the present federal Labor government's pursuit of renewables. Oh, they're going to be cheaper. You'll save money. That was the mantra. The shameful deception perpetrated by Anthony Albanese for no good reason, to achieve nothing. This is what they call a boondoggle. Gee, that's a lovely word. I love it. I'm going to make that the word of the day on Friday. Boondoggle, which means simply a useless waste of money. Along, of course, with the NDIS. I mean, those two things should be enough to get this lot chucked out of office. It can't be that you don't know or haven't noticed their incompetence, don't care, that with every day we become less competitive, switching to renewables which can't do the job, while at the same time we export our coal to China and India, who get the benefit, the cost of living benefit, ladies and gentlemen, the competitive advantage, and they get it without criticism of anyone in the world. They turn our first-grade coal, the coal we can't use, into cheap energy for themselves, to benefit their people. Where is the logic? These two countries are the major global emitters. Again, I say, no criticism of them anywhere. The UN, the Climate Council, the Greens, the Extinction Rebellion people, the Greta Thunbergs of this world, this activist world, all silent about India and China. But here we are with an abundance of cheap energy, and we can't use it. And Pete, you're right. The Liberals should be standing on their hind legs saying, you guys are crazy. China and India can use Australian coal, but Australians can't. The whole thing's laughable. A scandal worthy of, yes, a royal commission. Australia, who produces 1.3% of global emissions, could go on using our high-grade coal to the advantage of everybody and not damaging or affecting the atmosphere. Professor Plimer is a lone but very powerful and credible voice on this subject. And instead of the media beating a path to his door, they ignore one of the few people who, with knowledge and credibility, expose this nonsense for what it is. Every time he's on the Friday show, there are more and more people who tune in. Will this government listen to and acknowledge Professor Ian Plimer's expertise? Will the media help him to shine his knowledgeable light on the climate issue? Of course not. Of course not. A bunch of lemmings racing towards the cliff. But I'll tell you what they will put their energy into: shutting up anyone who doesn't mouth the mantra of the unreliable, expensive renewables. Think, for God's sake. Think. I'm talking to you. Think. That's what this misinformation and disinformation legislation is all about. We will have a brief moment within the next 5 months to clean this lot of ideologues out. I don't think they could lie straight in bed. No, we're not planning to change the rules around negative gearing or capital gains tax. No, there'll be no carbon tax under a government I lead. Lies. Just remember our Treasurer, who has probably, arguably, never had a real job in his life, learned his political philosophy at the feet of Paul Keating. It would have been about the time of Paul Keating when Labor did away with negative gearing See, a lot of the commentators weren't around, so they don't remember that. Labor did away with negative gearing, only to create a bigger problem than the one they were trying to fix. And they had to reinstate negative gearing, where it's been ever since. But philosophically, that's where their head is. They hate the idea of people getting ahead, and negative gearing is one of the few ways that we in the real world have to provide for ourselves and our futures. And please note that their dislike of personal initiative has not stopped most of the Labour Party front bench from availing themselves of the opportunity to negatively gear dozens of investment properties. And that is the truth. You can investigate it. Okay for them, not so much us. Isn't it weird? If I was the government, Liberal or Labour, I would want as many people as possible to be independent and successful, and yes, prosperous, and increase their wealth and the national wealth. And by the way, if you were wondering, no, I don't have any involvement in properties that are negatively geared, but I will tell you I'm a fan of negative gearing, because in my early days I was able to set myself up with property that enabled me to leverage myself into buying radio stations. Banks won't lend without security. My experience in life is that first you need a good bank, and I have truly been blessed. Then you need courage, and of course, security. And hopefully, a government that isn't against you and your aspirations. I'm out of time, aren't I? We don't do edits on this program, so when I get a coughing fit or something, we carry on. We survive. Now the dates. Happy birthday if you're having a birthday. It is October 2nd. No, it's not.
October 5th.
No, that's tomorrow. We're recording Tuesday and Wednesday on the same day. October the 1st, it is. 1888, the National Geographic magazine is published for the first time. That's a great magazine. Yeah. 1888. Henry Ford introduces the Model T car. It cost $825 on this day in 1908. 1908. Little golden books, fantastically successful. I remember having little golden books as a kid. They began publishing on this day in 1942. I was born in 1945. Yeah, that'll be right, little golden books. 1926, oil field accident costs aviator Wiley Post his left eye. Uses his settlement money to buy his first aircraft. Didn't they call him Wrong Way Wiley? He always ended up flying the wrong way. But got there in the end, and that's all that matters, ladies and gentlemen. The first postcards are issued in Vienna, Austria in 1869. You did postcards, didn't you, Pete?
Yes.
If we're getting to the end of the battery, you better just wave or
No, we're okay.
put your leg up in the air or something. 1969, Concorde 001. The jet plane first tested breaks the sound barrier on this day. 1969. Julie Andrews, British Grammy, Emmy, Academy Award-winning stage, screen, singer, actress, My Fair Lady, Mary Poppins, Sound of Music, was born. 1935. Happy birthday, Julie Andrews. Following the Port Arthur massacre, John Howard's Australian government starts a gun buyback, compulsorily acquires more than 640,000 firearms. Don't know what it cost, but most people put their guns in. They were in safe hands. I don't know. I don't know what they'd achieved. Cost a lot of money. Anyway, that was this day in 1996. Can you imagine all the bad guys are going to come and hand in their guns, Pete?
They're not.
Lovely thought, though.
If guns are outlawed, only outlaws
We'll have guns. Yes, I've heard that. 2019, law allowing teachers to carry guns in schools comes into effect in the United States state of Florida. Well, 2019 on this day. World War I, combined Arab and British forces under Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence, captures Damascus from the Turks. This day in 1918, and a legend was born. 1934, on this day, Adolf Hitler expands the German army, navy, violating the Treaty of Versailles and telling the world what was to be. Of course, we had our head in the sand for the next 5 years or so. The Beach Boys recorded their debut single, Surfin', introducing a near musical style on this day in 1961. The first appearance of In God We Trust on US paper currency on this day in 1957. George Peppard, I liked him. He was good. American actor, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Banachek, The A-Team, Hannibal, Blue Max, born Detroit. He died in 1994, but born this day in 1928. Brian Epstein signs a contract to manage the Beatles through to 1977. That was in 1962 it was signed. Karl Marx publishes Das Kapital in Germany, a description of the capitalist system, its instability and tendency to self-destruct. 1867. Well, socialism, old boy, ain't done that well either. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton and I will be back tomorrow. Believe in yourself, and thank you for viewing.